Hello, friend. Welcome to Science for Sleep. Whether you have spent many evenings here or have only just arrived, this is a quiet place to slow the pace, learn something gentle, and allow the day to fade little by little. Tonight, we are following one of the smallest and quickest animals found in the woodlands of eastern North America, the eastern chipmunk. At first, there may be almost nothing to see. A layer of dry leaves rests beneath an oak tree. A fallen branch lies across the ground. Near one of its roots is a round opening, only a few centimeters wide, leading into the soil. Then a striped head appears. The chipmunk remains at the entrance for a moment, with its dark eyes raised and its small ears pointed forward. It is checking the space around it before leaving the safety of the ground. A few seconds later, the rest of the animal follows. An adult eastern chipmunk is usually between about 20 and 30 centimeters long when its tail is included. Its body may weigh only around 70 to 140 grams. Though size changes with age, sex, season, and access to food. 5 dark stripes run along its back, divided by narrow bands of lighter fur. More dark and pale lines cross the sides of its face. The chipmunk pauses again, then runs beneath the fallen branch and across a short patch of open leaves. Its movement appears sudden, but its destination is probably familiar. Chipmunks do not usually wander through their surroundings without direction. Much of their activity begins and ends at an underground burrow that serves as the center of daily life. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're welcome to subscribe. And if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find this calm corner of science, one sleepy listener at a time. The eastern chipmunk is known scientifically as Tamias striatus. It belongs to the squirrel family, along with tree squirrels, ground squirrels, marmots, and prairie dogs. Unlike the tree squirrels often seen crossing high branches, eastern chipmunks spend most of their working time close to the forest floor. They can climb logs, shrubs, stone walls, and low branches. But the ground remains the main stage of their daily routine. They search there for acorns, beechnuts, maple seeds, berries, mushrooms, bulbs, insects, and other small foods. The chipmunk, beside the fallen branch, finds a seed among the leaves. It picks the seed up with its front feet and places it inside its mouth. But it does not chew. Instead, it pushes the seed into an expandable pouch inside one cheek. A second seed follows, then a third. The sides of the face slowly become rounder as the hidden pockets begin to fill. This food may not be eaten for days or even months. The chipmunk is carrying it toward a protected store beneath the soil. That underground home is much more than a place to sleep. It can contain a leaf-lined nest chamber, tunnels used for movement, and separate spaces where dry seeds are kept. The same burrow may shelter the animal during storms, hide it from predators, protect newborn young, and provide a stable place to spend much of the winter. Above ground, the chipmunk can find almost everything it needs. It can collect food, locate mates, gather nesting material, watch its neighbors, and listen for warning calls. But the surface is also where danger is greatest. Hawks can approach from above. Foxes, coyotes, cats, weasels, snakes, and other predators may move through the same plants and fallen leaves. A small animal standing in the open has little room for error. This creates the basic problem around which much of a chipmunk's life is organized. Its food is mainly above ground. Its strongest safety is mainly below ground. Every trip must connect those two places. The chipmunk must leave shelter, find something worth carrying, remain exposed long enough to gather it, and then return without losing either the food or its life. Its speed helps. Its striped coat may make its outline harder to follow among stems and broken shadows. Its memory helps it reuse familiar paths. Its cheek pouches allow several food items to travel in a single load. The burrow waits at the center of it all. The chipmunk now turns back toward the root where it first appeared. Its cheeks are full, but its steps remain quick. It passes beneath the branch, reaches the small opening, and disappears into the darkness. The leaves settle again. From the surface, the entire visit may have lasted less than a minute. Yet that short journey joined together an animal's body, an underground home, a remembered landscape, and a supply of food that may be needed long after the trees above have stopped producing it. What looked like a quick dash across the forest floor was one complete movement inside a much larger survival system. A few moments later, the striped head rises through the entrance again. The chipmunk keeps most of its body close to the ground while it checks the leaves, roots, and low branches nearby. Its neck is short, so the head seems to join smoothly with the shoulders. The trunk is narrow and flexible. 4 limbs rest beneath the body, ready to push, catch, turn, or stop, with very little warning. This compact shape suits an animal that often travels through crowded spaces. A chipmunk may pass beneath a fern, climb over a root, squeeze beside a stone, and change direction before a larger animal could move through the same path. The eastern chipmunk belongs to a mammal family called Sciuridae. This is the squirrel family. It includes familiar tree squirrels, along with ground squirrels, marmots, prairie dogs, and many other relatives. The family contains animals that use very different landscapes, but they share several important features. They have strong limbs, curved claws, and large front teeth called incisors. Those incisors continue growing throughout life. Regular gnawing and the contact between the upper and lower teeth wear their surfaces down, helping them remain at a workable length. The eastern chipmunk spends much more of its daily life near the ground than a grey squirrel or red squirrel usually does. Food is searched for among fallen leaves, low plants, exposed soil, and the bases of trees. The burrow entrance is also found at ground level, so nearly every important journey begins and ends there. Even so, the chipmunk remains a capable climber. Its claws can grip rough bark. Its flexible ankles help the feet adjust to uneven surfaces. A low branch, leaning log, stone wall, or tree stump can become a feeding platform, lookout point, or route around danger. The body is especially effective at producing short bursts of movement. Large muscles in the hindquarters straighten the back legs and drive the animal forward. The front feet reach out to control the landing. They also absorb part of the impact when the chipmunk drops from a root or low branch. During a quick turn, the flexible spine bends and helps the front half of the body change direction before the hind feet push again. This movement pattern works well over short distances. A chipmunk often escapes by reaching the nearest cover, rather than trying to outrun a predator across a long open space. A gap of only a few meters may separate one hiding place from another. Rapid acceleration can carry the animal beneath a log or into its burrow, before a hunting bird completes its approach. The tail contributes to these movements. It is covered in longer fur than the rest of the body, though it is narrower and less plume-like than the broad tail of many tree squirrels. When the chipmunk runs over a log, the tail shifts as the body leans. During climbing, it helps steady sudden changes in position. It may also lift or swing during social encounters and moments of alarm. The animal's most visible feature is the set of stripes running along its body. 5 dark stripes extend along the back and sides, with paler bands between them. Additional dark and light lines cross the face, passing above and below the eye. Among dry stems, exposed roots, leaf shadows, and narrow bands of sunlight. These alternating lines can make the body's outline harder to follow. Camouflage does not make the chipmunk disappear. Its likely value comes from reducing the clear shape that a watcher sees during a brief pause or sudden movement. The stripes work alongside the animal's speed, alert posture, familiar routes, and tendency to remain near cover. A chipmunk that stands still in an open patch may still be easy to notice. The same animal beside a striped pattern of grasses, twigs, and shadows can blend into a much more complicated background. The head remains raised during these pauses. Eyes positioned toward the sides provide a broad view of the surroundings. Small, rounded ears can turn slightly toward rustling leaves or a nearby call. Whiskers around the muzzle help detect objects close to the face, especially in dim passages or crowded vegetation. Each part supports movement between sheltered points. The chipmunk can run in many directions, yet its trips do not spread evenly across the forest floor. Certain logs are crossed again and again. Specific routes lead toward the burrow. One patch may contain fallen seeds, while another offers thicker cover. The animal's compact body provides the speed to move through this landscape. Its survival depends on learning which small portion of that landscape is worth using every day. From the burrow, one narrow route passes beneath a fallen log. Another follows the edge of a stone before slipping through low plants. A third leads toward a mature beech tree, whose seeds may cover the ground during a productive autumn. The chipmunk does not use each path equally. Some are crossed several times in a single morning. Others may remain untouched for days until a food patch becomes useful again. Together, these routes form part of the animal's home range. A home range is the area an animal regularly uses while feeding, resting, finding mates, and moving between important locations. Its boundary is usually uneven. A stream, open lawn, road, rock face, neighboring burrow, or dense patch of plants may cause the animal to travel farther in one direction than another. Within the home range is a smaller region where activity is most concentrated. Biologists often call this the core area. For an eastern chipmunk, the burrow usually sits close to the center of that heavily used space. The tunnel entrance provides a fixed point from which daily journeys spread outward. The area around it may also contain feeding places, lookout points, hiding cover, and the first parts of familiar escape routes. A core area can be defended more strongly than the outer edges of the home range. Even then, the chipmunk does not own every patch of soil inside an exact border. Neighboring home ranges may overlap, especially where several animals visit the same seed-producing trees. Two chipmunks can use part of the same woodland, while still keeping separate burrows and defending the places closest to their own entrances. Detailed observations in the Adirondack Mountains of New York helped reveal how strongly these movements remain centered on the burrow. Naturalist Lang Elliott followed individual eastern chipmunks and recorded the places where they appeared. For the animals watched most closely, the calculated center of their movements lay an average of only about 3.1 meters from the burrow. The word calculated matters here. Researchers can mark each observation on a map and find the geometric center, meaning the middle point among all recorded locations. The chipmunks were free to travel much farther than 3 meters. Their repeated returns caused the overall pattern to gather around the underground refuge. Most activity spread outward like an uneven set of spokes. One route might reach a feeding patch beneath a maple. Another could lead toward a gap in a stone wall. Several short paths might remain close to the entrance, where quick retreat was easiest. During the same spring and early summer observations, many estimated home ranges covered roughly 0.2 to 0.4 hectares. That equals about half an acre to 1 acre. For an animal that can sit comfortably in 2 human hands, this represents a large area to inspect, remember, and cross. One female followed over combined observation periods used at least 0.34 hectares. Her true range may have been larger. Home range measurements depend partly on how long an animal is watched. A chipmunk observed for one afternoon may appear to use only the ground around its burrow. Several weeks of tracking can reveal occasional longer trips that a short visit would miss. Weather also changes what can be observed. A rainy day may keep the animal underground. A sudden food supply can pull it toward one edge of its range for several mornings. The map therefore becomes clearer as more movements are recorded. Later research in Pennsylvania followed chipmunks on a much larger scale. Scientists captured 278 individuals, a total of 3,933 times. The repeated captures showed that access to mass-producing trees helped shape how the animals use space. Mast is the crop of nuts and seeds produced by trees such as oaks and beeches. A productive tree can draw several chipmunks toward the same part of the forest. Its importance may last for days or weeks, depending on how many seeds fall and how quickly animals remove them. The internal map of a home range can shift without the whole range moving. A chipmunk may spend several days visiting one beech, then gradually turn toward berry-producing shrubs elsewhere. Mushrooms can appear after damp weather. Insects become more active during warm periods. Seeds from different plants ripen at different points in the year. Through these changes, the burrow remains the stable center. Paths gain or lose value as food appears, disappears, or becomes too risky to collect. The quick movements across the leaves now form an organized pattern. Each trip connects a known refuge with a temporary opportunity somewhere beyond it. What waits at the far end depends on the season, because a forest does not provide the same meal in every place or at every time. Several mornings later, the chipmunk's most valuable root leads beneath a mature beech tree. Small brown husks lie among the leaves. Inside, some of them are beech nuts, each holding a dense supply of fat and carbohydrate. A single productive tree can concentrate enough food in one place to change the animal's routine for days. The chipmunk may visit shortly after sunrise, return several times before noon, and continue until the easiest seeds have been removed. Another root can temporarily lose importance while this patch remains rich. Tree seeds form a major part of the eastern chipmunk's diet. In some studied populations, they provide as much as roughly 90% of the food consumed over time. Acorns, beechnuts, maple seeds, and seeds from other woodland plants offer compact packages of energy. Many also have hard outer coverings that protect the edible material inside. A dry nut can remain useful far longer than a soft fruit exposed to moisture and decay. The remaining portion of the diet adds variety and fills gaps between seed crops. Eastern chipmunks eat berries when they ripen close to the ground. They dig up the bulbs of herbaceous plants, which are small plants with soft green stems rather than woody trunks. Mushrooms become available after damp weather has encouraged fungal growth beneath the leaves. Insects and other invertebrates can supply protein, especially when plant foods are scattered or young animals are growing. Each kind of food creates a different opportunity. A berry can be eaten quickly, though its high water content makes long storage difficult. An insect provides valuable nutrients, but cannot fill a dry underground pantry in the same way as a shelled seed. A buried bulb may remain available after leaves above it have vanished. Yet finding and digging it up takes time. Food choice, therefore, depends on much more than taste. The chipmunk must gain enough energy to justify the search. It also has to handle the item, carry it through the landscape, and remain exposed while doing so. Distance from the burrow matters. Cover from plants and logs affects safety. A tough shell may slow eating while protecting the food during storage. Some years bring a much larger seed supply than others. Biologists use the word mast for the nuts and seeds produced by woody plants. A mast event occurs when many trees of the same kind produce an unusually heavy crop across a broad area at roughly the same time. An oak woodland may release enormous numbers of acorns during one autumn, followed by a much smaller crop in another year. Beeches can follow their own irregular rhythm. The interval between major crops changes with tree species, local climate, weather during flowering, and the conditions in earlier growing seasons. Long-term studies in Quebec have followed eastern chipmunks through these uneven pulses. The forest there does not provide the same number of seeds every autumn. Several quieter years may separate major crops. When abundance rises, chipmunks increase their collecting activity and can carry large amounts underground. When seed production falls, the same animals must travel farther, use a wider mixture of foods, or depend more heavily on what remains stored. These regional crops also affect competition. A study in Pennsylvania found that access to mass-producing trees helped shape how adult chipmunks use space. White oaks appeared to be especially valuable. Their distribution created places where the home ranges of several animals approached or overlapped. A tree that drops many acorns can briefly become a disputed resource, even when each visitor keeps a separate burrow elsewhere. A rich patch still contains practical limits. The chipmunk cannot safely sit beneath the tree and eat every available seed. Chewing takes time. Digestion can only proceed at a certain rate. Remaining in one exposed place also gives predators more opportunity to notice repeated movement. The most useful response is to separate collection from consumption. Some seeds can be eaten during the visit. Many others are worth carrying away while they remain plentiful. This turns a mass crop into a race against several forms of loss. Other chipmunks may arrive. Mice, squirrels, deer, birds, and insects also consume woodland seeds. Rain can soak exposed food. Fungi can grow through damaged shells. Some seeds begin germinating when moisture and temperature reach the right conditions. A temporary surplus has value only while the animal can still reach it. The chipmunk lowers its head, selects another beechnut, and places it inside its mouth without chewing. More seeds follow. The food patch may contain hundreds or thousands of separate items, yet the animal can carry only a small fraction during each trip. Its survival depends on moving that brief abundance into a safer future, one mouthful at a time. The first beechnut enters the mouth and moves sideways instead of toward the throat. A second seed follows the same path. Soon the fur beside the jaw begins to bulge. The chipmunk keeps gathering while the shape of its face slowly changes. These rounded cheeks are created by expandable pockets inside the mouth. Each pouch begins along the inner wall of the cheek and stretches backward beneath the thin muscles and skin of the face. Anatomists describe this kind of structure as an outfolding of the oral cavity. The oral cavity is simply the space inside the mouth. Food placed there remains outside the stomach and has not yet entered the main digestive system. This lets a chipmunk collect seeds without stopping to chew and swallow each one. A nut can be moved aside, another can be picked up, and the trip can continue while the stomach remains available for food eaten earlier. The pouches are soft and flexible when empty. As a load grows, their walls expand and press outward beneath the fur. The exact capacity changes from one trip to another. A large acorn takes up far more room than a small maple seed. The size of the chipmunk matters as well. Shape also makes a difference, because several narrow seeds may fit together more closely than a few rounded nuts. For this reason, there is no single number that describes every full pouch. The chipmunk arranges the load with quick movements of the tongue and jaw. Its front feet may briefly hold a seed while the mouth turns it into a useful position. The food must remain secure while the animal lowers its head, runs over uneven ground, and passes through the narrow burrow entrance. Muscles around the cheek help make that possible. One important group includes the buccinator muscles. In humans, these muscles help hold food between the teeth while chewing. In chipmunks and several other pouch-bearing rodents, they also help control the opening leading into each pouch. Muscle fibers around this entrance can tighten in a way similar to a small ring. A ring-shaped muscle that controls an opening is called a sphincter. Other muscles attached farther back help pull and position the pouch as it fills. They also assist when the animal is ready to empty it. Together, these tissues turn a loose pocket into a controlled carrying space. Rodents have evolved more than one version of this solution. Chipmunks have internal cheek pouches whose openings lie inside the mouth. Hamsters use a broadly similar internal arrangement. Pocket gophers carry food differently. Their pouches open on the outside of the face and are lined with fur. Kangaroo rats and their relatives also have external fur-lined pockets. A kangaroo rat can place seeds into those pouches without bringing the food fully into its mouth. Scientists group kangaroo rats, pocket mice, and several close relatives within a rodent family called Heteromyidae. The word refers to a specific branch of the rodent family tree rather than to one style of movement. Pocket gophers belong to a different family again. Internal pouches in chipmunks and external pouches in these other rodents developed along separate evolutionary paths. This is an example of convergent evolution. Convergent evolution occurs when unrelated or distantly related animals develop similar useful features because they face a similar problem. Here, the shared problem is transportation. Seeds often appear in one place and need to be moved somewhere safer. Natural selection produced several kinds of portable storage without requiring those animals to inherit the same pouch from a recent common ancestor. For the chipmunk, the internal version fits a life of rapid collection near the ground. The same mouth can inspect food, arrange it, carry it, and later begin digestion after the load has been delivered. When the chipmunk reaches its burrow, eating may still be delayed. It moves down the entrance passage and reaches a storage area beyond the narrow surface opening. The 4 feet rise toward the mouth. The tongue and facial muscles push the first seed forward. One item is removed, followed by the rest of the load. The cheek gradually returns to its usual narrow shape. Dry seeds can be placed together inside a gallery or moved farther into the burrow. Within a short time, the chipmunk may return to the surface with empty pouches. The food gathered during the previous trip remains below ground, still unchewed and available for later use. This separation between transport and digestion greatly increases the value of each journey. A larger load reduces the number of exposed trips required to move the same amount of food. Filling that load still takes time. Each additional seed keeps the chipmunk beneath the tree a little longer, where distance, cover, and danger begin shaping the moment when gathering should stop. Beneath the beech tree, the chipmunk pauses with both cheeks partly filled. A sunflower seed lies close to its front feet. Picking it up would add only a small amount of weight, yet even a few extra seconds can matter when the animal is away from its burrow. The value of that seed depends on more than its calories. Distance changes the calculation. So does the amount of cover between the food patch and the entrance. A rustle in the leaves can change it again. Biologists describe this kind of feeding pattern as central place foraging. The central place may be a nest, den, colony, or burrow. Food is collected elsewhere and carried back to that fixed location. For an eastern chipmunk, the burrow forms the center, while feeding patches appear at different distances around it. A patch only a few meters away can be visited often. The chipmunk may gather a modest load, make a quick delivery, and return without spending much time traveling. A distant patch creates a different situation. The animal has already paid a larger cost in movement before reaching the food. Returning with only 1 or 2 seeds would make that travel less productive. A fuller pouch allows more energy to be moved during each round trip. This does not mean the chipmunk performs a conscious calculation with numbers. Natural selection has shaped flexible behavior that responds to distance, safety, food abundance, and experience. Researchers have tested these choices by placing feeding dishes containing sunflower seeds at controlled locations. Sunflower seeds work well in such experiments because each item is small, easy to count, and attractive to chipmunks. The dishes can be placed close to a burrow or farther away. Some can sit beneath protective vegetation or overhead cover. Others can be positioned in more open ground. The resulting loads reveal how the animal responds to changing conditions. Eastern chipmunks collected larger loads at covered sites located some distance from their burrows. The distance effect matched a basic prediction of central place foraging. Longer travel makes each trip more expensive in time and energy, so carrying more food home improves the return from that journey. Cover altered the result, because gathering also requires remaining still enough to handle each seed. A chipmunk must lower its head, pick up the item, and move it into a cheek pouch. During those moments, less attention is available for watching the surrounding ground and sky. Low plants, branches, or other shelter can reduce exposure and give the animal more time to continue filling its pouches. An open feeder creates a higher perceived cost. The food may be plentiful, but the animal remains visible while collecting it. A shadow passing overhead or movement near the edge of the patch can end the visit before the cheeks reach their greatest capacity. The amount carried, therefore, reflects a balance between the value of staying and the value of leaving. Researchers sometimes describe the departure moment as a giving up point. This is the point when continued feeding no longer seems worth the added time, effort, or danger. The giving up point can arrive while plenty of food remains. A sudden alarm call may bring it forward. Thicker cover may delay it. Competition can also matter. When another chipmunk approaches the same dish, the remaining seeds may soon become unavailable. Staying longer could secure a larger load, though conflict near the feeder adds its own risk. Conditions can change during a single visit. A patch that felt safe upon arrival may become exposed when a predator moves nearby. The chipmunk may leave with one cheek fuller than the other. A distant feeding site may still produce a small load if danger appears early. A close site may produce a large one when shelter is dense and food can be gathered quickly. The pouches provide capacity, while the surroundings determine how much of that capacity is useful. This creates a steady series of small adjustments. The animal responds to the length of the route, the time needed to handle each item, and the protection offered by nearby cover. Past experience also shapes the trip. A patch visited safely over several mornings may be approached with less hesitation. A place where a hawk recently passed overhead may cause longer pauses and an earlier retreat. Once the chipmunk leaves, the value of the load depends on reaching the burrow efficiently. A full pouch carried along a poor route can waste the advantage gained at the feeding patch. Safe travel requires remembered turns, familiar cover, and knowledge of where food has already been found or stored. The chipmunk leaves the feeding dish with both pouches rounded and turns toward a fallen log. A straight run across the open leaves would cover less ground. Instead, the animal follows the shaded side of the wood. passes beneath a low branch and reaches the shelter of a young maple. This route has been used before. The chipmunk has learned where its body can pass quickly, where cover becomes thin, and which turns lead back toward the burrow. Its movements depend on several senses working together. Vision provides the broad arrangement of the landscape. A pale stone beside a root, the dark opening beneath a stump, or the angle of a leaning trunk can serve as a landmark. Chipmunks see well enough to judge gaps, detect movement, and recognize the general shape of familiar surroundings. Smell adds information that the eyes cannot provide. A seed hidden beneath leaves releases odor molecules into the air and soil. Freshly disturbed earth may carry the scent of a recent cache. The burrow entrance also holds the smell of the resident, nesting material, stored food, and the surrounding ground. Whiskers help when space becomes narrow. Each whisker is rooted more deeply than an ordinary hair and surrounded by sensitive nerve endings. When one touches the wall of a tunnel or the edge of a root, that contact helps the animal judge nearby space without placing its face directly against the object. The feet supply more information through pressure, texture, and the slope beneath them. Repeated experience joins these separate signals into a usable memory of the area. The chipmunk does not need a human-style map with named paths and exact borders. It needs to recognize where food has appeared, which direction leads toward shelter, and how one landmark connects with the next. Scientists have tested parts of this ability in yellow pine chipmunks, a western species found in mountain forests and open woodland. In cache recovery experiments, the animals searched for food they had previously hidden. Their search patterns showed an advantage at their own cache sites, supporting the use of spatial memory. Smell still mattered. Odor can guide an animal during the final part of a search, especially once it has reached the correct patch of ground. Memory can bring the chipmunk close, while scent helps narrow the remaining distance. Field observations in the Adirondack Mountains provide quieter examples from eastern chipmunks living in familiar forest habitat. Lang Elliott watched one individual create a small scatter hoard and then returned directly to it about 1 hour later. A scatter hoard is a small store placed away from the main underground pantry. Such stores may hold only a limited amount of food and can serve as temporary stopping points. Another observation followed a female that had removed overwintered beech nuts from her burrow. She placed them in a temporary outside location and returned roughly 6 hours later to the same spot. The delay was long enough for the animal to travel, feed elsewhere, and respond to other events before coming back. Directed returns like these show why memory is useful even when a chipmunk maintains a large central larder underground. A full day can contain several storage sites, feeding patches, resting places, and escape routes. Their value changes as food is moved or consumed. The map must therefore be updated through experience. A fallen branch may block an older route after a storm. Growing plants can cover a familiar opening. Rain alters odors and softens the soil. Another chipmunk may remove a cache before its owner returns. Repeated paths offer speed because fewer choices need to be made during travel. They also create a pattern that others can notice. A predator waiting near a well-used log may turn a safe route into a dangerous one. A neighboring chipmunk can watch where a loaded animal pauses and later investigate the same ground. Memory improves the chance of recovery without guaranteeing success. Some caches remain hidden from their owner. Seeds may spoil, germinate, or become buried beneath new leaves. A location remembered correctly can still be empty when the chipmunk arrives. The animal continues adjusting as these outcomes accumulate. Routes that remain productive receive more visits. A poor patch gradually loses attention. Fresh food creates new paths through the home range, while the burrow keeps the larger pattern centered. The chipmunk now reaches the familiar entrance and carries its load below. Elsewhere among the leaves, smaller stores remain where they were placed earlier. Their locations may be remembered clearly, yet every one of them lies inside a shared forest, where another hungry animal can arrive first. The chipmunk passes the burrow entrance and continues another few meters through the leaves. Its cheeks are still full. Near the base of a sapling, it stops beside a patch of loose soil and begins moving the surface litter with its forefeet. A shallow pocket appears beneath the leaves. The chipmunk empties several seeds into it, covers them, presses the ground briefly, and moves away. This small store is called a scatter hoard. Scatter hoarding divides food among many separate locations. Each cache may contain only a few seeds or a modest pouch load. The sites can be spread beneath leaves, beside roots, under fallen wood, or in patches of soft soil. Eastern chipmunks also create a second kind of store. A larder hoard places a much larger amount of food in one central location, usually inside the burrow. These two methods solve different parts of the same problem. Scattered stores divide the risk. If another animal discovers one cache, the remaining caches may survive elsewhere. A large underground larder requires less travel during cold or dangerous periods. It can also be guarded from a familiar burrow system. Each arrangement carries a cost. Scattered caches require more memory and repeated journeys. A larder gathers much of the animal's reserve into one place, so an intruder that reaches it can remove a large share. Many surface stores appear to function as temporary holding places. A chipmunk may collect food quickly, while a tree is producing heavily, hide it nearby, and transfer it underground later. This reduces the time spent making long trips during the busiest part of the harvest. Field observations in the Adirondack Mountains followed 16 scatter hoards made by eastern chipmunks. Many disappeared within a few hours or during the following day or two. Their disappearance could mean that the owner returned, a neighbor found them, or another seed-eating animal carried the food away. A smaller number lasted much longer. Some remained for 6 days. Others were still present after at least 12 days, while one persisted for no fewer than 22 days. Time also changes the food itself. One observed cache contained red maple seeds that remained in place long enough to germinate. Moisture entered the seed coat. The embryo resumed growth, and a young root began pushing outward. A stored item can therefore become less useful to the chipmunk, while beginning a new stage in the life of the plant. The same uncertainty exists underground. A burrow offers stronger protection, though its entrance can be watched and entered. During one observed breeding period, a female eastern chipmunk was occupied away from her usual routine. A neighboring chipmunk entered her burrow and carried food out. The intruder completed at least 4 loaded trips. Researchers estimated that roughly 100 beech nuts were removed. Each nut represented time spent searching, handling, transporting, and storing. The theft transferred that accumulated effort to another animal within a short period. This helps explain why chipmunks may chase intruders near the center of their home range more strongly than they react near the outer edges. The burrow contains concentrated value. Its food can support periods of bad weather, low seed production, or reduced winter activity. Other chipmunk species face similar storage choices. The Siberian chipmunk, which occurs naturally across parts of northern Asia, uses both scattered caches and underground larders. Its separate evolutionary history has produced a familiar answer to the same seasonal problem. Food can be divided across the landscape, gathered behind a defendable entrance, or shifted between the two as conditions change. The scale of a successful underground store can be difficult to judge from the animal carrying it. After an abundant seed year, researchers excavated one eastern chipmunk burrow in early May. Inside were 5,460 beech nuts. The collection had survived through autumn, winter, and the beginning of spring. It represented hundreds of surface trips made by an animal weighing little more than a small apple. Some of those nuts may already have been eaten. The remainder still held stored energy gathered many months earlier. A larder of that size changes the meaning of the burrow around it. The tunnels must provide access to food while preserving room for movement and rest. Stored seeds require dry spaces and protection from flooding. The resident needs routes that allow it to enter, turn, unload, and reach different parts of the reserve. As more of the chipmunk's future becomes concentrated below ground, the small entrance begins to reveal the outline of a much larger structure. The chipmunk approaches the entrance carrying another load of seeds. Only a small opening is visible between the roots and fallen leaves. Its diameter is little wider than the animal's body, and the surrounding ground may show no obvious sign of the tunnels below. From above, the entrance can look like a dark circle leading only a short distance into the soil. The main burrow may begin several meters farther in. Detailed observations in the Adirondack Mountains showed that an active entrance often led through a long, narrow passage before reaching the larger underground network. In 3 mapped systems, this entrance passage extended roughly 3 to 4.5 meters. The tunnel itself was commonly around 3.75 centimeters in diameter. That width gave the resident enough room to pass, while keeping the opening too small for many larger animals. The chipmunk lowers its body and enters head first. Its whiskers touch the sides of the passage as the light fades behind it. A full set of tunnels does not always begin with one animal digging an entirely new home. During long-field observations, Lang Elliott did not see dispersing juveniles or adults construct complete burrow systems from untouched ground. Young chipmunks explored the surrounding area and appeared to locate structures that were already vacant. An abandoned system could then be cleaned, repaired, widened, or extended. This makes a burrow more like a structure with a history than a temporary hollow used for one season. One chipmunk may occupy it for a period, leave, or die. Another can later take possession and modify what remains. Older passages may collapse, while newer ones are added. Roots grow through the soil, and decaying wood changes the spaces around them. A system can slowly become more complex through repeated use. The available evidence does not support one exact design shared by every chipmunk. Elliott's detailed measurements came from 6 excavated burrows. They reveal common patterns while also showing substantial variation. Soil type, slope, roots, stones, water movement, and the age of the structure all influence its final shape. Even the entrance can change while the main rooms remain in use. Some residents were observed filling an older opening with leaves and soil, then beginning to use another point nearby. One female shifted to an entrance about 3.7 meters from the previous opening, while continuing to occupy the same underground system. A plugged entrance could remain as a hidden part of the tunnel network. Another opening might later be cleared if the main route became blocked or unsafe. Changing the doorway may also reduce the value of information gathered by a predator or competing chipmunk that has watched the older route. Most map systems had one entrance in active use at a given time. Alternate openings could remain sealed or difficult to detect. This helps explain why the visible surface gives so little warning of the space below. The location of the burrow also matters. An 8-year field study in Quebec found that eastern chipmunk burrows were associated with larger amounts of woody debris and with steeper small-scale slopes. Woody debris includes fallen logs, broken branches, old stumps, and other pieces of dead wood resting on the forest floor. These features can provide immediate surface cover near the entrance. Roots beneath a stump or log may help hold soil in place and reduce the chance of a tunnel collapsing. A slope can allow rainwater to move away more easily than it would in a flat depression. Local conditions still determine whether drainage actually improves, but raised or angled ground offers a practical advantage in many forests. A chipmunk entering near a root also gains a solid landmark. The same log can conceal movement above ground, while supporting part of the structure below. This relationship between surface objects and underground form helps explain why certain burrow sites remain useful across more than one occupant. The chipmunk continues along the narrow entrance passage with its cheeks full. After several meters, the tunnel begins to meet a larger arrangement of cavities and branches. Food must be unloaded somewhere dry. A sleeping area needs softer material and enough room for the body to turn. Side routes can hold additional stores or lead toward sealed openings. Beyond the small doorway lies a network whose separate spaces have been shaped for different parts of the chipmunk's life. The passage continues through compact soil, narrow enough that the chipmunk's whiskers can brush both sides. Near the entrance, the tunnel measures about 3.75 centimeters across. Farther below, the darkness opens into a broader system, hidden roughly 0.5 to 1 meter beneath the forest floor. That depth places the main rooms well below fallen leaves and shallow roots. In the Adirondack burrows carefully excavated by Lang Elliott, a central nest chamber often formed the heart of the system. The cavity was roughly spherical and measured about 15 to 25 centimeters across. That is large enough for one eastern chipmunk to curl, turn, and arrange bedding around its body. Crushed leaves lined the chamber, Their overlapping surfaces trapped pockets of air, creating a light layer of insulation between the animal and the surrounding soil. The leaves also provided a softer surface during rest, winter torpor, and the early development of young. Several passages could meet around this central space. In the mapped burrows, about 3 to 5 tunnels connected the nest chamber with nearby galleries. Each branch added usable space without forcing every activity into the same cavity. Some passages remained narrow routes for movement. Others widened into storage areas. A chipmunk carrying full cheek pouches could enter the system, reach one of these galleries, and unload seeds away from the main sleeping surface. The larger food galleries measured approximately 0.3 to 0.6 meters long. Some reached about 12.5 centimeters across. Their stretched shape allowed nuts and seeds to be stored along a passage, while leaving room for the animal to move beside or over them. Smaller pockets could hold separate deposits. Food was also found beneath nesting material in some excavated burrows, showing that the internal arrangement could change as stores grew or were consumed. Separating activities helps the structure function more efficiently. A sleeping chamber benefits from dry bedding and enough open space for the body. Stored seeds need protection from moisture and repeated access during colder periods. Movement passages must remain clear enough for quick travel between the entrance, nest, and larder. These spaces do not require identical dimensions. Their different shapes reflect the jobs they perform. Real burrows also resist a perfectly tidy floor plan. Soil contains stones, roots, harder layers, and old channels left by decaying wood. A tunnel may bend because a root blocks the direct path. Other roots can support the roof and reduce collapse. In some systems, portions of the network may have followed spaces created as buried wood softened and disappeared. This helps explain why burrows near old stumps and fallen trees can grow into irregular arrangements. Accounts of chipmunk burrows sometimes describe a separate toilet chamber. Elliot found no concentrated toilet rooms in the 6 systems he excavated. Older secondary descriptions have reported them, so the safest conclusion is that waste patterns may differ between burrows or may be difficult to identify after excavation. A dedicated bathroom should not be treated as a feature of every chipmunk home. Below the main rooms, some burrows included deeper passages that became narrower as they descended. Several extended toward a dense layer of soil called hardpan. Hardpan is a compact layer that water and roots penetrate slowly. Elliot suggested that certain downward passages might help with drainage. That remains a proposed function rather than a confirmed rule. A deep shaft could give water somewhere to collect away from the nest, though its purpose may vary with local soil and the history of the system. The entire structure gains its usefulness through separation. Food can remain away from the main resting area. Bedding can occupy a chamber shaped around the body. Alternate passages offer access to different stores and sealed openings. Drainage may be directed below the spaces that need to remain dry. Above this organized volume, the surface may still show only one small entrance beside a root. Its chambers and galleries become more remarkable when winter weather reaches the forest. Air above the leaves may rise and fall sharply within a single day. Half a meter below, the surrounding soil changes temperature much more slowly, placing the chipmunk inside a different physical climate. Snow settles over the forest floor, while the chipmunk rests inside its leaf-lined chamber. Above the ground, the air may change quickly. A clear winter night allows heat to escape toward the sky, sending the temperature downward. Morning sunlight can warm exposed bark and stones within a few hours. Wind removes heat from the surface while passing clouds and fresh snow alter how much energy reaches the soil. The burrow experiences these changes more slowly. Soil contains mineral particles, water, air pockets, roots, and decaying organic material. Together, this large mass takes time to warm and time to cool. Physicists describe this delayed response as thermal inertia. An object or material with high thermal inertia resists rapid temperature change because a large amount of energy must enter or leave before its temperature shifts very far. The first few centimeters of soil still respond to sunlight and cold air. Deeper layers receive heat mainly through conduction. Conduction is the movement of thermal energy through direct contact between neighboring particles. As surface soil cools, heat passes gradually upward from the layers below. The process continues slowly enough that short temperature swings become weaker with depth. A burrow lying half a meter or more underground therefore occupies a steadier environment than the leaves above it. The soil does not generate the warmth. It holds on to earlier heat and slows its movement away. Researchers in southeastern Michigan measured this effect while studying eastern chipmunks during winter. 4 animals lived in outdoor artificial burrow systems, where conditions could be monitored more closely than inside natural tunnels. Each chipmunk carried a temperature-sensitive radio transmitter. The signal changed according to the animal's body temperature, allowing researchers to follow warming and cooling without opening the chamber repeatedly. Thermometers also recorded conditions inside the nest and at the surface. During the winter, nest temperatures remained between approximately 2 and 5 degrees Celsius. They never fell below 2 degrees Celsius during the study. The air above the burrows frequently dropped below -10 degrees Celsius. At those moments, the difference between the surface and the nest could exceed 12 degrees Celsius. For an animal weighing around 100 grams, that buffer greatly reduces the amount of heat that must be replaced. Food stored nearby benefits as well. Seeds kept above freezing are less likely to become locked inside solid ice. A stable chamber also protects the chipmunk from the rapid warming and cooling that would occur in a shallow surface shelter. Temperature stability introduces another physical condition that is easy to overlook. Air moves freely through an open forest. Underground, gas must travel through narrow tunnels and tiny spaces between soil particles. This movement is called diffusion. Diffusion carries molecules from places where they are more concentrated toward places where they are less concentrated. Fresh oxygen enters the burrow, while carbon dioxide produced by breathing moves outward. The exchange proceeds more slowly when passages are long, soil is wet, or openings are tightly sealed. Normal outdoor air contains close to 21% oxygen. Carbon dioxide makes up only a small fraction of 1%. Inside the artificial Michigan burrows, oxygen averaged about 17.8%. Carbon dioxide averaged roughly 3.2%. Both values changed over time as animals breathed, tunnels ventilated, and surrounding conditions shifted. These measurements came from controlled burrow systems, so every natural burrow will have its own gas pattern. A wide entrance may allow stronger air movement. Loose, dry soil contains connected spaces through which gases can travel. Saturated ground slows diffusion because water fills many of those spaces. Tunnel length and the number of open passages also affect ventilation. Chipmunks tolerate these underground conditions while adjusting their activity and breathing. During colder months, they can lower body temperature and metabolic rate for limited periods. A reduced metabolic rate means cells use energy more slowly and require less oxygen. The full winter pattern involves repeated cooling and warming, shaped by food supply and individual condition. For now, the important change lies in the burrow itself. Crossing the entrance moves the chipmunk from shifting surface weather into a buffered space with slower heat flow and restricted gas exchange. That stable environment protects bedding, stored seeds, and the resting animal. It also makes the burrow one of the most valuable locations inside the home range, giving every nearby chipmunk a reason to notice who controls its entrance. The chipmunk rises from the entrance and pauses with its front feet resting on the edge of the opening. A faint movement passes through the leaves several meters away. Another eastern chipmunk has entered the central part of the home range. The resident turns toward it, raises its body slightly, and watches. Adult eastern chipmunks usually occupy separate burrows. This makes them solitary animals, though solitary does not mean isolated from every neighbor. Their home ranges can overlap widely. Two animals may feed beneath the same oak, cross the same fallen log, or pass through the same patch of low plants at different times. Closer to the burrow, tolerance often decreases. The entrance protects the nest and provides access to stored food. A neighbor moving near that point could compete for seeds or enter the tunnel, while the resident is away. Defending every outer edge of a home range would require too much time and energy. The boundary is irregular, and food patches can attract several animals from different directions. Protection is therefore concentrated around places with the greatest value. A chipmunk may chase an intruder near the burrow, while allowing the same individual to remain farther away beneath a productive tree. Scent provides some of the first information about who has passed nearby. Odors can remain on soil, leaves, tunnel openings, and objects touched by the body. A fresh scent may reveal that another chipmunk recently visited the area, even after the animal has disappeared from view. Movement supplies faster information. A striped body crossing the leaves can trigger an upright posture or a short pursuit before either animal makes a sound. Eastern chipmunks also produce several recognizable kinds of calls. One familiar sound is a sharp, repeated chip. These calls may continue at regular intervals while the animal remains alert near cover. Lower sounds are often described as chucks or clucks. They have been recorded in some situations involving possible predators, although a call's meaning depends on the surrounding events. A rapid trill can occur while a chipmunk is being pursued. The sound contains a quick series of notes delivered close together as the animal runs toward shelter. Researchers have studied this pursuit trill in relation to the caller's sex, age, nearby relatives, and distance from the burrow. Those details matter because the same sound can carry different costs and benefits under different conditions. A call produced near the burrow may reach young relatives or familiar neighbors. Farther away, it may be heard mainly by unrelated animals. Calling also reveals that a chipmunk is present. A predator capable of locating sound may gain information from the signal. The call therefore enters the environment with no guarantee that only the intended listener will hear it. This is sometimes called public information. A sound produced by one animal becomes available to every creature within range that can detect and interpret part of it. A neighboring chipmunk may stop handling food after hearing a sharp call. Its head rises, chewing pauses, and attention shifts toward the surrounding cover. A bird or squirrel nearby may also react if experience has linked that sound with danger. No formal cooperation is required. Each listener can use the information for its own survival. Responding carries a cost. Time spent scanning cannot be used to gather seeds. A chipmunk that retreats after every harmless sound may lose access to a valuable food patch. Ignoring a reliable warning carries a much greater possible cost. The animal must balance those outcomes using the sound itself, the caller's location, recent experience, and whatever can be seen or smelled nearby. The resident now gives a short burst of sound and moves toward the intruder. The second chipmunk retreats across the leaves and stops beyond the central area. Neither animal has joined a permanent group. Each still returns to a separate underground home. Their spacing keeps them physically apart, while scent, movement, and sound keep their activities connected. The forest around the burrow now contains more than food routes and hiding places. It also contains signals that can change behavior before danger becomes visible. To use those signals well, a listening chipmunk must judge more than the presence of a call. Its response can depend on where the sound came from, what was happening when it was produced, and which individual made it. A hidden speaker can turn an ordinary feeding patch into a controlled test. Researchers place the speaker near an area used by wild chipmunks, then play a recorded call while watching from a distance. The animal may stop handling food, raise its head, scan the surrounding cover, freeze briefly, or leave the area. Each response can be timed and compared with reactions to other recordings. These experiments reveal that chipmunks do not react to every call in exactly the same way. A study published in 2018 examined consistent differences in vigilance among individual eastern chipmunks. Vigilance means the time an animal spends watching for possible danger, rather than feeding or traveling. Some individuals regularly scan their surroundings more often, even before any recorded call was played. Researchers use this usual level of scanning, sometimes called basal vigilance, to describe stable differences in behavior. An animal that watched its surroundings frequently was treated as bolder or more alert, according to the measurements used in that study. The label came from repeated observations, rather than a quick impression of personality. When recorded calls were played, the listener's responses depended partly on their own behavioral tendencies. A chipmunk that usually scanned often could respond differently from one that normally spent more time feeding. Information about the caller also appeared to matter. Receivers increased their vigilance more strongly after hearing calls produced by bolder individuals. This effect remained even after researchers accounted for whether the listener was familiar with the caller. the sound may have contained small differences linked with the caller's usual behavior. Pitch, timing, note length, or the spacing between sounds can carry information, although identifying the exact feature requires careful acoustic analysis. The listener does not need to understand another chipmunk in a human sense. Its nervous system only needs to connect certain sound patterns with outcomes that have mattered before. Calls from other species can become useful in the same way. Tufted titmice are small grey songbirds found in many eastern forests. When they detect a predator, several birds may gather nearby and produce repeated mobbing calls. Mobbing involves approaching and calling around a potential threat, often while remaining far enough away to avoid immediate capture. In a feeding experiment, recordings of tufted titmouse mobbing calls caused eastern chipmunks to behave as though predation risk had increased. The animals altered their foraging more clearly after the mobbing calls than after a direct recording of a hawk call used in the same study. A cluster of alarm birds may provide broader information than one isolated predator sound. Their calls suggest that several animals have detected something nearby and are continuing to track it. A chipmunk can use that information without joining the birds or knowing the exact location of the threat. Location also changes the value of a chipmunk's own signals. Researchers tested pursuit trills by simulating chases at different distances from the burrow. Adult females trilled during 67% of chases, conducted 10 meters from home. At 100 meters, the rate fell to 14%. Adult males showed a different pattern. They trilled during 45% of the close chases, and 55% of those conducted farther away. Juvenile females trilled only during the 10-meter treatment. Juvenile males produced no trills during the experiment. The investigators suggested that nearby relatives may help explain part of the female pattern. Female eastern chipmunks often settle closer to their birth area than males, so a trill near the burrow may be more likely to reach related females or young. This interpretation involves kin selection. Kin selection describes situations in which behavior can help copies of shared genes survive through relatives. It does not require the caller to calculate family relationships or consciously choose sacrifice. The distance pattern supports the idea, while other effects such as familiarity, local experience, and individual condition may also contribute. A warning sound, therefore, carries several layers of information. Its value can depend on the caller's usual behavior, the listener's own level of caution, the species producing the sound, and the place where it occurs. The result is a flexible response rather than a fixed command. That flexibility matters because danger may approach from the air, move through ground cover, or remain hidden near the route back to the burrow, while the chipmunk's attention is lowered toward food. The chipmunk lowers its head toward a patch of sunflower seeds. For a moment, its eyes point toward the ground, and its ears sit closer to the level of the leaves. Handling food requires attention. The forefeet must hold the seed, the mouth must position it, and the cheek pouch must receive it. During those seconds, less attention remains available for watching the sky or studying nearby cover. A chipmunk gains energy by feeding, yet the same action creates an opening for animals seeking energy of their own. Hawks approach through the air above the trees. A Cooper's hawk can move between trunks with short, controlled wing beats. while a red-tailed hawk may watch from a higher perch before descending toward open ground. Their approach is especially dangerous when the chipmunk is far from a log, stone wall, or burrow entrance. Ground predators use a different path. Foxes, weasels, domestic cats, and coyotes can remain partly hidden behind plants or changes in the land. A weasel's narrow body allows it to follow prey into spaces that would block a larger mammal. Snakes may approach through leaf litter, wait beside cover, or enter shallow passages. The chipmunk must therefore divide its attention among several directions while continuing to collect enough food. Each upward glance interrupts feeding. The paws stop moving, the head rises, and the animal spends several seconds checking its surroundings. That pause improves the chance of detecting movement. It also leaves food untouched. A chipmunk that scans constantly may remain safer during the next minute, while gathering too little energy for the coming days. Continuous feeding raises the amount collected, though it reduces the number of chances to notice an approach. Biologists study this balance with giving up density experiments. A tray begins with a measured quantity of food mixed into sand, soil, or another material that requires searching. The animal removes some of the food and eventually leaves. Researchers then measure what remains. A large amount left behind can suggest that the feeding cost rose quickly because of danger, effort, or competition. A smaller remainder suggests that the patch continued to feel worthwhile for longer. Recorded tufted titmouse mobbing calls changed this balance in eastern chipmunks. After hearing the alarmed birds, the chipmunks behaved as though the feeding area had become more dangerous. They spent more effort responding to possible risk and treated the available food as less valuable than it had seemed moments earlier. The seeds themselves had not changed. Information from another species had changed the cost of collecting them. Cover alters the same decision. At feeding sites farther from the burrow, chipmunks have carried larger loads when overhead or nearby shelter was available. A distant trip becomes more efficient when the animal fills its pouches before returning. Protective vegetation gives it more time to do that. An open patch can bring departure sooner, even when the cheek pouches still contain space. Full pouches add weight around the face and may change how food is handled, though a loaded chipmunk can still run quickly. The greater risk often comes from the time required to assemble the load. Every extra seed extends the visit. A poor retreat route can erase the advantage of carrying more. Several earlier features now work together during one short feeding trip. The striped coat makes the body's outline less distinct among stems and broken shadows. Remembered paths reduce hesitation between the food patch and shelter. Alarm calls provide information about threats that may still be hidden. Cheek pouches reduce how many separate journeys are needed. The burrow gives the trip a protected ending. Each feature lowers a different part of the danger. None removes it completely. The chipmunk remains a consumer of seeds, fungi, and small animals, while also serving as possible food for predators. Energy moves through the woodland in both directions. The nut entering one cheek could support the chipmunk through a cold week. The chipmunk itself could support a hawk, fox, or snake through the same period. For now, the animal lifts its head, waits beside the feeder, and then returns to gathering. Its route remains familiar, and the burrow is close enough for a rapid retreat. This individual spacing works through most of the year. For brief periods, reproduction changes the value of distance and draws solitary chipmunks beyond their usual routes, bringing separate lives into direct contact. Late winter begins to loosen the ground around the burrow entrance. Snow may still remain in shaded places, while exposed soil warms during the day and hardens again after sunset. For most of the cold season, the chipmunks' movements have stayed close to shelter and stored food. As spring approaches, familiar routes begin serving a new purpose. A receptive female can draw males beyond the centers of their usual home ranges. The timing varies across eastern North America. Latitude affects day length and temperature. Snow cover can delay surface activity. Local food supplies influence body condition after winter. In Canadian field observations, eastern chipmunks bred during March and April, with another breeding period recorded in June and July. This creates the possibility of 2 litters within 1 year. The pattern is unusual among squirrels that use winter hibernation or torpor. A female may breed once or twice depending on her condition, age, location, weather, and access to food. Some years support only 1 successful reproductive period. During a female's short receptive window, the usual spacing between adults changes. Her scent and behavior attract males from surrounding areas. Several may enter the same part of the forest within a limited period. Logs, roots, and familiar feeding paths become parts of a fast-moving chase. A male that normally remains near his own burrow may cross neighboring ranges and travel through less familiar cover. That wider movement increases the chance of finding a mate. It also increases exposure to predators and conflict with other males. The pursuit can include quick turns, short pauses, and repeated approaches. Males compete for access, though the encounter does not usually create a lasting pair. After mating, the male returns to his own routine. He does not generally move into the female's burrow or remain there to help raise the young. The female carries the full energetic cost of pregnancy and nursing. Gestation lasts approximately 31 to 32 days. During that month, embryos grow inside the uterus while the mother continues feeding and maintaining her body temperature. The energy stored in seeds and body fat now supports developing tissue as well as her own daily needs. A female in good condition has more energy available for this work. Poor food supplies can reduce the chance of breeding, limit litter size, or make a second litter less likely. Birth takes place inside the protected nest chamber. A litter usually contains several young, although the number varies among populations and years. Differences in female age, food abundance, and local conditions make a single fixed litter size misleading. The newborns are extremely small. Their skin is mostly bare. Their eyes remain closed, and their movements are limited. Warmth, milk, and the stable chamber around them determine their early survival. Milk production demands a steady supply of energy and water. The mother must continue making surface trips while returning regularly to the nest. Her feeding choices may become more urgent because several growing bodies now depend on what she can gather. Thermoregulation adds another cost. Thermoregulation is the control of body temperature. Young chipmunks cannot regulate heat as effectively as adults during their earliest days. The mother's warmth, the leaf bedding, and the surrounding soil help keep the chamber within a safer range. A cool, wet nest would increase the energy required to protect the litter. Burrow depth and dry bedding therefore contribute directly to reproductive success. The breeding season connects processes that began months earlier. Autumn food affected winter reserves. Winter reserves influenced spring body condition. That condition helps determine whether pregnancy and nursing can be supported. A heavy seed crop may continue shaping the population long after the last nut has fallen. By early summer, another breeding opportunity may appear. Females that recovered enough energy can mate again, while others remain focused on their first litter or skip the second period entirely. The possibility of 2 litters adds flexibility to a short active season. It also increases the total demand placed on stored food, current feeding patches, and safe travel routes. The rapid mating chases eventually end. Adult home ranges settle back toward their usual centers. Beneath the soil, the consequences continue quietly. Inside one leaf-lined chamber, newborn chipmunks experience warmth, touch, and milk before they encounter sunlight, trees, or the open forest floor. Inside the nest chamber, the young chipmunks begin life in near darkness. At birth, each one weighs only about 2 to 3 grams. Their skin is mostly bare. Their eyes remain closed, and their ears are still developing. Movement is limited to small pushes against the bedding and the warm bodies nearby. Milk from the mother supplies water, fat, protein, and the energy needed for rapid growth. The chamber around them provides an equally important form of protection. Soil 1/2 meter or more below the surface changes temperature slowly. Crushed leaves hold pockets of air around the litter. The mother's body adds warmth during the periods when she remains in the nest. Together, these conditions reduce how much energy the newborns must spend trying to stay warm. During the following weeks, the body changes quickly. Fine fur begins covering the skin. Dark stripes become easier to see as the coat develops. The limbs gain strength, allowing the young to crawl through the nest material and reach the nearby tunnel. Their eyes eventually open, bringing the underground walls, litter, and moving shape of the mother into view. Smell and touch already provide useful information before vision becomes fully available. The young recognize the nest through familiar odors. Whiskers begin helping them judge the narrow edges of the chamber and passage. Exploration gradually spreads beyond the bedding. A young chipmunk may enter a connecting tunnel, stop after a short distance, and return to the nest. These early trips occur inside a structure where the walls are close, and the route back is simple. The surface offers a much larger set of choices. Eastern chipmunks generally begin appearing outside after roughly 4 to 6 weeks, although the timing changes with development, location, and local conditions. Lang Elliott observed newly emerged young that had already reached about 60% of adult body mass. Their proportions looked more complete than those of newborns, yet they still lacked the experience carried by an established adult. At the entrance, littermates first remained close together. They examined the space around the opening before moving farther into the leaves. Some touched unfamiliar objects with the nose. Others tasted or nibbled pieces of plant material, bark, and small items lying nearby. These actions helped sort edible objects from the many textures covering the forest floor. Short trips became longer as the young gained confidence and strength. A root could provide the first raised lookout. A fallen branch created both shelter and a root. Calls from nearby adults introduced the sounds associated with danger, conflict, and movement through shared space. The mother's home range supplied the first landscape, but it could not remain the permanent center for every member of the litter. Tolerance among littermates was strongest around the time of emergence. As the juveniles spread outward, defensive behavior developed quickly. Some began guarding space around newly acquired burrows within 15 to 18 days of first appearing above ground. A suitable entrance offered immediate value. It gave the young animal a place to hide, rest, and begin storing food. Searching for an empty system could be faster than excavating a complete network through untouched soil. Juveniles were observed investigating vacant burrows during their early movements. Once one was occupied, the new resident could clear passages, add bedding, and begin treating the surrounding area as a personal center. Most marked juveniles in Elliott's study settled within 40 meters of their mother's burrow. That distance kept them inside a partly familiar landscape, while still creating separation between underground homes. Males tended to move farther than females. 2 documented young males established centers approximately 53.3 meters and 73.2 meters from the place where they had emerged. For a small animal crossing leaf litter and broken cover, such a journey contains many unfamiliar turns. The safest log may no longer point home. A neighbor's scent can mark an occupied entrance. Food patches known from early family trips may lie behind defended ground. Each juvenile must begin forming its own pattern of routes, feeding sites, warning sounds, and retreat points. The transition happens within a few weeks. A helpless newborn supported by milk and stable soil becomes an independent animal searching for a burrow and guarding space around it. These young chipmunks reach the surface as the forest's food supply begins changing again. Across the canopy above them, flowers and developing seeds are moving toward the season, when entire trees may release a sudden abundance onto the ground. By late summer, developing seeds have filled the branches above the young chipmunks. Then the first beechnuts begin to fall. Within days, the sound can spread across a broad part of the forest as seeds strike leaves, roots, and expose soil. A single tree may produce heavily, yet the largest change occurs when many trees of the same species do so, across an entire region. Biologists call this synchronized production masting. During a mast year, oaks, beeches, or other woody plants release an unusually large seed crop over roughly the same period. The event may cover many square kilometers. Several lean years often separate these heavy crops, though the timing varies with tree species, weather, soil conditions, and events during earlier growing seasons. One autumn can therefore provide far more food than the next. Long-term research in Quebec has shown how strongly these changing seed supplies can shape eastern chipmunk life. When seeds are scarce, individuals may remain closely tied to an established burrow and the familiar feeding routes around it. Researchers found greater burrow fidelity during non-mast years. Burrow fidelity means continuing to occupy the same underground system rather than shifting to another one. A known burrow provides shelter, stored food, and roots learn through repeated use. During a rich mast year, food becomes abundant across a wider area. That abundance can change the value of staying close to one center. Some chipmunks travel more broadly, investigate different spaces, or take advantage of burrows near newly productive trees. Above ground, the workload becomes easy to see. Cheek pouches fill repeatedly. Temporary scatter hoards appear beneath leaves and beside roots. Seeds stored near the feeding area may later be transferred into the main burrow. Underground galleries gradually gain weight as hundreds of separate trips move the autumn crop into dry soil. The numbers can become surprisingly large. After one productive season in the Adirondack Mountains, an excavated eastern chipmunk burrow still contained 5,460 beechnuts in early May. The animal had already lived through much of the cold season, yet thousands of stored items remained. Some seeds can last even longer. Viable red maple seeds at least 1 year old have been recovered from a chipmunk burrow. Viable means that the living embryo inside the seed was still capable of growth. A dry, protected store can therefore preserve food beyond the season in which it fell. Storage never guarantees that every item will remain useful. Moisture may encourage mold. Insects can damage seeds. Some begin to germinate, while others are stolen or forgotten. Even so, a large crop raises the chance that enough energy will survive underground to support the animal through difficult months. The effects continue beyond the larder. A rich seed year can improve body condition before winter. More food may allow some animals to conserve less aggressively, survive periods of bad weather, or enter spring with greater reserves. Females in better condition may reproduce successfully. Young born after a strong crop may also encounter more food during their first months above ground. Population growth often appears after a delay. The forest produces the seeds first. Improved survival and reproduction then increase the number of chipmunks seen in later seasons. A mass crop can therefore shape competition after much of the original food has already been eaten or hidden. More surviving juveniles eventually require separate burrows. More adults may visit the same remaining feeding patches once the surplus declines. The abundance of one autumn can create crowded conditions in the following year. Research in Quebec suggests that chipmunks may also adjust reproduction before mature seeds become available. Beech trees produce flowers and developing seed structures months before the final crop falls. Animals feeding on early plant material or responding to other seasonal cues may gain information about the abundance that is forming overhead. In some years, breeding timing has shifted so that growing young reach important stages when the coming seed crop becomes available. The exact cues remain difficult to separate. Developing flowers, weather patterns, plant chemistry, and previous food conditions may all contribute. The result shows that a resource pulse can influence behavior before the main pulse reaches the ground. Thousands of private gathering trips are therefore connected to a regional event in the canopy. Trees turn sunlight and soil nutrients into seeds. Chipmunks move part of that energy underground. Months later, the stored crop continues affecting survival, reproduction, and the number of animals using the forest. Even the largest larder has a limit. Cold conditions continue drawing energy from the body, while fresh surface food becomes harder to reach. Stretching the autumn surplus through winter requires the chipmunk to reduce the rate at which that stored energy is used. Snow gradually covers the roots between the burrow and the autumn feeding grounds. Frozen soil seals away many bulbs and invertebrates. Short winter days reduce the time available for safe foraging, while low temperatures make every surface trip more expensive. Inside the burrow, the chipmunk still has stored food. Its body must stretch that reserve across weeks or months, when replacing it becomes difficult. Warmth carries a large energy cost for a mammal this small. An eastern chipmunk may weigh close to 100 grams, giving it a high surface area compared with the amount of tissue inside its body. Heat escapes across that outer surface. A mouse-sized animal therefore loses warmth much faster, gram for gram, than a deer or bear. Cells replace the lost heat by breaking down chemical energy from food. Muscles, the liver, and other active tissues release warmth as they use sugars and fats. Keeping the body near its usual temperature requires this process to continue, even while the animal rests. The temperature difference between the body and its surroundings also matters. A warm chipmunk inside a chamber near 3 degrees Celsius loses heat more quickly than one whose body has cooled closer to the temperature of the burrow. Eastern chipmunks can reduce that difference through torpor. Torpor is a controlled physiological state in which metabolism slows and body temperature falls. Metabolism means the combined chemical activity that keeps cells working. As that activity decreases, the animal uses oxygen and stored energy more slowly. Breathing becomes less frequent, the heartbeat slows, and less fuel is burned to maintain warmth. Torpor is deeper than ordinary sleep. During normal sleep, a mammal continues regulating its body close to the usual warm level. A torpid chipmunk allows its temperature to decline substantially, while its nervous system and organs continue functioning at a reduced rate. Hibernation includes extended seasonal use of torpor. Species differ greatly in the depth and length of their bouts, so hibernation forms a broad range of patterns rather than one fixed condition. Eastern chipmunks use a flexible pattern that often includes comparatively shallow cooling and repeated awakenings. A winter study in southeastern Michigan measured this flexibility directly. Researchers monitored 4 eastern chipmunks living in outdoor artificial burrow systems. Temperature-sensitive radio transmitters allowed the scientists to follow changes inside each animal without repeatedly disturbing the nest. The underground chambers stayed between approximately 2 and 5 degrees Celsius. At the surface, winter air frequently fell below -10 degrees Celsius. 3 of the 4 chipmunks entered frequent periods of shallow torpor between December and February. The remaining animals stayed euthermic. Euthermic means maintaining the normal warm body temperature used during active life. Even under the same broad outdoor conditions, the 4 animals did not follow an identical winter schedule. Most recorded torpor bouts lasted less than 24 hours. The mean minimum body temperature during those bouts was 16.6 degrees Celsius. The lowest measurement reached 10 degrees Celsius. That is far below the normal temperature of an active chipmunk, yet still warmer than the surrounding nest. Cooling to this level reduced the temperature gap between body and soil. A smaller gap meant less heat escaped each minute, allowing stored seeds and body fat to last longer. The chipmunks periodically warmed again. During these arousals, movement returned. Body processes accelerated, and the animal could travel through the burrow to eat from its larder. A meal supplied energy for continued life and for the next warming event. Afterward, the animal could enter another torpor bout as conditions and internal signals allowed. Food storage and torpor therefore support each other. The larder provides fuel without requiring a winter trip to the surface. Metabolic slowing reduces how quickly that fuel disappears. An animal with abundant stores may spend more time warm and active underground. A chipmunk with limited food can conserve more deeply or for longer periods, though age, health, season, and individual physiology also influence the pattern. This flexibility lets the animal respond to a winter that changes from week to week. A mild spell may open opportunities near the entrance. A severe cold period can favor remaining below. Torpor helps preserve energy, yet cooling also slows biological processes throughout the body. As spring approaches, tissues involved in reproduction must become active again. The safest way to conserve food through winter may delay the physical preparation needed when breeding begins. During a late winter arousal, the chipmunk's body begins producing heat at a much faster rate. Its heartbeat accelerates. Breathing becomes deeper, and warm blood moves through tissues that had been operating at a reduced temperature. Within a relatively short period, muscles regain strength and normal movement returns. The chipmunk leaves the nest chamber and enters a storage gallery. A dry seed supplies energy, but the process of becoming warm enough to eat it has already consumed fuel. Rewarming is one of the most expensive parts of torpor. Heat must be generated inside the body until the brain, muscles, and internal organs return close to their normal active temperature. Brown fat can contribute to this process. Brown fat is a specialized tissue that releases stored chemical energy, mainly as heat. Muscle activity adds more warmth as the animal begins to move. Frequent arousals therefore reduce some of the energy saved during the cold period between them. The chipmunk's winter pattern depends partly on how much food remains nearby. Researchers tested this relationship by keeping eastern chipmunks at an air temperature of 5 degrees Celsius. The animals received one of 3 seed supplies. The smallest store weighed 400 grams. An intermediate store contained 1,000 grams. The largest contained 5,000 grams, more than 12 times the smallest amount. Chipmunks given 400 grams continued using torpor until their food had been consumed. Their limited store favored continued energy conservation. The animals with 5,000 grams behaved differently. They ended hibernation earlier and remained warm even while food was still available. A large reserve gave them enough energy to support a higher metabolic rate without immediately exhausting the larder. The 1,000-gram group produced a mixed result. 42% remained torpid until the food was gone. The other 58% ended hibernation, while some seeds remained. Individuals facing the same temperature and the same starting food amount still followed different physiological paths. Body condition, age, hormone levels, and earlier winter experience may all contribute to such differences. The timing of torpor also changed across the season. Bouts became longer through autumn as winter approached. they remain comparatively long during the cold middle portion of the season. During spring, the periods of cooling shortened as the animals prepared for sustained surface activity. These changes are regulated through internal clocks, temperature, food availability, and hormonal signals. No conscious choice is needed. The body responds to conditions through shifts in metabolism and endocrine activity. Endocrine activity refers to hormones moving through the blood and changing how organs behave. Deeper torpor can improve the chance of surviving winter. Field research found a positive association between lower body temperatures and winter survival. An animal that conserves energy more strongly can preserve food and body fat during long cold periods. That advantage comes with a seasonal cost. In male eastern chipmunks, long or deep torpor can slow spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis is the production and development of sperm cells inside the testes. The process requires active tissue, suitable hormone levels, and enough warmth to proceed. Males that use shorter, shallower torpor near the end of winter showed more advanced sperm development. They could approach the breeding season in a more prepared state. A male conserving energy deeply may have a stronger chance of reaching spring. Another that becomes warm earlier may be ready to mate sooner, while using more of its remaining food. The best outcome depends on what happens afterward. A late snowstorm can reward continued conservation. An early spring and a short breeding opportunity may favor earlier warming. Food abundance changes the cost of either path. This creates a life history trade-off. Life history describes how an animal divides limited energy among survival, growth, and reproduction across its lifetime. Energy spent in one direction becomes unavailable somewhere else. The eastern chipmunk's winter physiology remains flexible because conditions rarely offer one perfect setting. Torpor depth, bout length, food use, and reproductive preparation shift together as the season changes. This particular balance developed within the forests and winters occupied by the eastern chipmunk. Related species living among western mountains, dry valleys, coastal forests, and the broad landscapes of Asia have faced different temperatures and food cycles. Their shared striped form now carries many variations shaped by separate evolutionary histories. Far beyond the eastern forests, the same striped body appears in very different surroundings. In the Rocky Mountains, chipmunks climb among broken stone, open pine woodland, and slopes where snow can remain into early summer. Along the Pacific coast, other species move through damp forests beneath redwoods and Douglas firs. Across northern Eurasia, the Siberian chipmunk occupies parts of Russia, China, Korea, and Japan. These animals share the compact build, cheek pouches, and quick ground-level movement already seen in the eastern chipmunk. Their details have changed as separate populations face different foods, winters, elevations, and competitors. Scientists often arrange living chipmunks into three major lineages. The eastern chipmunk belongs to the group called Tamias. Under a system that treats these groups as subgenera, it is the only living member of the subgenus Tamias. The Siberian chipmunk belongs to Eutamias. Most Western North American chipmunks belong to the large group called Neotamias. Depending on the taxonomic authority, Neotamias contains approximately 23 recognized species. Taxonomy is the science of naming and organizing living things according to their relationships. Those relationships are sometimes revised when new evidence becomes available. Some classifications treat Tamias, Eutamias, and Neotamias as three separate genera. Others place them within one broader genus called Tamias and use the three names for smaller branches inside it. Both systems attempt to describe the same evolutionary history. The difference comes from how strongly scientists choose to mark the separation among the branches. Genetic studies have made the Western group especially interesting. A mountain range can divide one population from another. High elevation forests may remain cool and moist, while a valley below becomes warmer and drier. Chipmunks on opposite slopes can encounter different plants, snow seasons, predators, and breeding times. Over many generations, small inherited differences accumulate. Body size may shift. Coat color can become better matched to local soil and vegetation. Seasonal timing may change as food appears earlier at low elevation and later near the tree line. This process is called evolutionary radiation. A radiation occurs when one ancestral group divides into several forms that become suited to different environments. Western chipmunks appear to have diversified relatively quickly as landscapes and climates separated their populations. Geography did not always keep those developing species completely apart. Periods of climate change moved forests up and down mountain slopes. Populations that had been separated could meet again. Closely related chipmunks sometimes interbred when their ranges touched. A genetic study published in 2014 found evidence of mitochondrial introgression across all 23 Western species examined. Mitochondria are small structures inside cells that help release energy from food. Their DNA is usually inherited through the mother. Introgression occurs when genes enter the population of another species through interbreeding followed by repeated mating with members of that second population. A female from one species may mate with a male from another. Their descendants can later breed back into one of the parent populations. After enough generations, most of the descendants' DNA may come from one species, while their mitochondrial DNA traces back to the other. This creates a family history with crossing branches. Mitochondrial DNA alone can therefore produce a misleading picture if it is treated as the complete species tree. Researchers compare it with DNA from the cell nucleus. Anatomy, geography, behavior, and breeding patterns. Together, those forms of evidence reveal both separation and past contact. The chipmunk family tree has grown through isolation, while retaining signs of occasional exchange. Across these lineages, familiar survival problems remain. Food still has to be found and carried. Shelter must protect the animal from local weather. A western mountain species may prepare for deep snow, while a chipmunk in a drier region faces long periods when seeds and green plants are scarce. The basic system of pouches, remembered routes, underground stores, and seasonal adjustment can be reshaped without disappearing. This gives the striped form its wide reach. One version moves beneath eastern beaches. Another crosses granite beside a high mountain pine. A third stores seeds in the forests of northern Asia. Their evolutionary differences influence which plants they visit, how widely they scatter food, and how long particular seeds remain hidden after the animal has moved on. Those private choices leave physical traces in the landscape, linking chipmunk survival with the future of plants, fungi, predators, and the forests around them. A beechnut carried away from its parent tree can follow several different paths. The chipmunk may eat it within minutes, opening the shell with its incisors and digesting the energy inside. Another nut might enter an underground larder, remain there through winter, and disappear during a later awakening. Food placed beneath leaves can be stolen by a mouse or moved again by the chipmunk that first hid it. Moisture may allow fungi to enter through a damaged shell. Some forgotten seeds begin growing where they were left. The chipmunk gathers food for its own survival. Yet incomplete recovery can move living seeds away from the tree that produced them. This is one form of seed dispersal. A seed beneath its parent tree often faces heavy competition from nearby seedlings. It may also be easier for insects or other seed eaters to find where thousands have fallen together. Transporting it several meters can place it in a patch with different light, soil moisture, and competition. A forgotten cache sometimes creates suitable planting conditions because the seed has already been covered with soil or leaves. Most cached seeds never become mature trees. Many are eaten, damaged, or placed where seedlings cannot survive. Chipmunks therefore act as both seed predators and seed dispersers. The balance changes with plant species, cache location, and the fraction of stores later recovered. Fungi also enter this exchange. Chipmunks eat mushrooms and underground fungal structures when they find them. Many fungi reproduce through microscopic cells called spores. Spores can cling to fur, remain in disturbed soil, or pass through an animal's digestive system. When moved to a new location, some may help establish fungal growth there. This matters because many forest trees cooperate with fungi around their roots. The fungal threads gather water and minerals from the soil, while the tree supplies sugars made through photosynthesis. Chipmunks can become one small link in the movement of those fungal partners. Their place in the food web extends in both directions. Hawks and weasels gain energy by catching chipmunks. The chipmunks themselves consume insects and other invertebrates. They may also take eggs or small nestlings when an opportunity occurs, though plant foods usually dominate much of their diet. Each feeding event redirects stored energy through another body. The shape of the forest influences whether this exchange can continue. Fallen logs provide cover above ground and can support burrow sites through roots or compact soil. Small slopes may improve drainage around tunnel systems. A thick understory, meaning the layer of shrubs and low plants beneath the canopy, reduces the distance between hiding places. Large oaks and beeches supply heavy seed crops that younger trees cannot yet match. A woodland can therefore retain many standing trunks while losing important chipmunk habitat through the removal of dead wood, low vegetation, or old seed-producing trees. Human changes also divide forests into smaller patches separated by roads, lawns, and buildings. Some eastern chipmunks adapt well to gardens and stone walls. Others face greater exposure while crossing open spaces, and isolated populations may exchange fewer genes over time. A new scientific tool is making those long-term changes easier to study. In May of 2026, researchers published the first assembled and annotated reference genome for the eastern chipmunk. A reference genome is a detailed working map of the DNA carried across an animal's chromosomes. The main sequence came from a male collected in Maine and preserved as a documented museum specimen. A standard test of genome completeness gave the assembly a score of 96.1%. Researchers compared it with the previously assembled genome of the Siberian chipmunk. About 55.45% of the genes showed collinearity, meaning they remained arranged in matching stretches and a similar order. Large rearrangements appeared between chromosomes 4 and 8. The comparison also identified 219 genes, showing evidence of positive selection in the eastern lineage. Positive selection means that inherited versions of those genes may have spread because they improved survival or reproduction under past conditions. Additional, shorter DNA sequences came from chipmunks collected in Carbon County, Pennsylvania, and Newcastle County, Delaware. Together, these samples can help researchers examine population history, local adaptation, and the effects of fragmented habitat. The genome may also support studies of eastern chipmunks as reservoir hosts for Borrelia burgdorferi, the bacterium most often associated with Lyme disease in North America. A reservoir host can carry and pass a pathogen to feeding ticks without every individual becoming visibly ill. The scale has now widened from one hidden seed to chromosomes, forest structure, and future disease research. Each layer began with ordinary acts of gathering and retreat. The same striped animal can now be followed back toward one familiar entrance, carrying these larger consequences within a single brief trip across the leaves. Near the base of the old root, the dark opening remains almost unchanged. A striped head rises through it and stays still for several seconds. The chipmunk's pause allows its eyes and ears to gather information before the rest of the body enters the daylight. Leaves move in a light breeze. A bird calls from higher in the trees. Nothing nearby causes the animal to retreat. It steps forward and follows a route that has been traveled many times. The path curves beside the route and passes along the sheltered edge of a fallen branch. Familiar landmarks reduce the time needed to choose each turn. They also keep the chipmunk close to cover, while it moves between the safety of the burrow and a feeding place farther away. Broken sunlight reaches the ground through spaces in the canopy. Dark bands cross the leaves and exposed wood. The 5 stripes along the chipmunk's back meet this uneven pattern as the animal passes through it. Its outline remains visible, though the alternating lines make the shape harder to hold against the shifting background. Speed carries the chipmunk through one exposed gap. Memory directs it toward the next protected point. Near a seed-producing tree, the animal stops and begins searching through the litter. Its nose moves close to the ground. The forefeet turn a curled leaf and uncover a dry seed beneath it. The seed enters the mouth and moves sideways into an internal cheek pouch. A second item follows. Nothing is swallowed yet. The mouth has become a transport space, linking this temporary supply above ground with a protected store below it. The tree may produce far less food during another year. This brief abundance, therefore, has value beyond the present morning. Each seed carried away becomes a small amount of chemical energy that can be used later. Some will support ordinary activity. Others may help warm the body after a period of winter torpor. A few could remain underground long after the season in which they fell. The chipmunk continues gathering until the shape of its cheeks has widened. A nearby sound brings the head up. Feeding stops while the animal scans the surrounding cover. After a short pause, it turns toward home. The return journey follows the protected side of the log. The burrow lies close to the center of the animal's daily movements, serving as both a geographic anchor and the main working structure of its life. Beneath the entrance, the narrow passage reaches rooms shaped through digging, reuse, and gradual repair. One chamber holds crushed leaves. Nearby galleries contain stored food. Surrounding soil slows the movement of heat, keeping winter conditions below ground more stable than the air above. During the coldest part of the year, the chipmunk can lower its body temperature and reduce its use of energy. Periodic warming allows it to move through the tunnels and eat from the larder. Stored food reduces the need for dangerous winter travel, while torpor slows the rate at which the store disappears. The same chamber can later protect newborn young, whose first weeks pass without sunlight. Their warmth depends on the mother, dry bedding, and the buffered temperature of the soil. When they eventually reach the entrance, each young animal must begin learning its own routes and searching for an underground center. Some may occupy structures shaped by chipmunks that lived there before them. The animal now reaches the opening and enters with its cheeks full. Most of the seeds will eventually be eaten. One may remain in a side pocket after the chipmunk has moved away. Another could be stolen and carried to a different patch of ground. A seed left beneath leaves may absorb water and begin extending a root into the soil. That outcome lies outside the purpose of the cache, yet it continues the exchange between the chipmunk and the forest. Predators also remain connected to these movements. Neighbors hear calls and watch routes. Plants gain occasional transport through stores that are never fully recovered. The consequences spread outward even though the animal's attention remains fixed on food, shelter, and immediate safety. The final curve of the tail passes below the root. For a moment, a faint movement can be heard beneath the leaves as the chipmunk travels along the entrance tunnel. Then the surface becomes still. The opening once again appears no larger than a small shadow in the soil. Beyond it remain the remembered paths, packed galleries, changing body temperature, and seeds gathered from the season above. The visible journey has ended, while the system beneath it continues quietly underground.